Okay, we are back with our high quality camera here. So we were at the entrance to the tomb, and one of our newer players, Corbin the Dwarf, had decided to kind of test the waters and push open the door to the crypt. And as he did so, I decided it was time for some action, and there was 8 skeletons behind the door to this crypt, a raiding party that was getting ready to unleash its nastiness upon the town. So just at the exact same moment he grabs the door, a skeletal hand reaches around the door and grabs his hand, and it's on. Let's roll initiative. And this is the point where the party finally realizes that mage isn't here. Wait a minute, yeah, we were talking with a mage, and I guess he never really did answer, did he? Says, I was hoping for a really simple, let's all go forth and conquer sort of quest, but I don't know. I'm all for some good RP. Maybe I figured this would be a good opportunity for some RP between opposing alignments, seeing as the cardinal, the mage, had decided to roll a lawful character where everyone else was either neutral or chaotic, and so I kind of gave him probably gave him too much leeway, but I let him decide that he didn't necessarily have to roll with the party, and that's fine. We can roll in multiple mission, multiple campaign sort of deal. And combat ensued. There's Thraven, our other fighter, had just a miserable night when it came to dice rolls. Poor guy. I truly felt bad for him. I was trying to just send him as much good mojo as I could to try to get some good hits out of this poor guy. And I think he actually ended up taking the first attack and bringing him down to pretty dangerous levels of hit points. So he had to actually fall back and receive healing from our cleric, Mr. Devaic. And so Devaic healed him up. The dwarf and the 2 elves attacked, dealing some damage. And the cleric had cast Turn Undead, turning all but one of the skeletons, and they just fled. The rest fled back down the hallway at the entrance of the crypt. So they dispatched this first skeleton, and just before it fell, the cardinal decided that he was going to have one of his dogs attack. So I guess he had been following close behind, but he decided he wanted to enter the fray from inside the tomb. I don't know how we're going to play that. I don't know how to write that. He'd already been inside. I left some mystery to it. Sure. I gave him a lot of leeway that night. I really did. So yeah, he appears mysteriously from inside this tomb and finishes taking down this first skeleton, at which point I decided I didn't want it to be that simple, and I let the other skeletons return. Which they dispatched in good form. They seemed a little less than thrilled when the skeletons did return. But they dispatched them. It's no big deal. So then they, after this combat, they, good old Fandel, one of our elves, our youngest player, he was 11 years old, really trying to get a feel for what he wanted to be in Dungeons & Dragons. What a good kid, I gotta say. That he was nothing but motivated. He was really just excited to be there. And he was gathering bones, he was gathering this, he was gathering that. By the end of the night, I think he had a good galleon full of assorted trophies from every single thing they'd encountered. So they do their bit, they search the bodies, they don't find anything of any real value, and move on further into the crypt. And once inside the crypt, they search around this main room inside there with all the caskets, and find that one wall has in fact caved in, and there's footsteps leading through the hole. And so they enter through the hole at the back of the crypt, and they find a cavern. It seems to be an underground, long lost cavern with a good trail of footsteps. It was fairly large, and no one really tried to make any sort of experimental or investigative roll or request to try to figure out exactly what it was they were following. So we didn't really go into that any farther, so that's fine. And again, not a ton of experience on some parts. Maybe we weren't just thinking of it on others, and that's fine. We were still having fun. Everyone was real happy, laughing, playing, having fun. They continue down this cave, and they come across what seems to be old ancient dwarven ruins. And the plot line originally had this planned out to be an ancient dwarven prison where they had entombed a very dangerous relic that had caused almost the destruction of all these lands. An ancient necromancer's orb of power that he had stored in the end his soul in. It's what he had been using to gather every single force of undead he could get his hands on. Just a truly malicious, evil character. We didn't get into that though, so who cares? So they enter these ruins, and I said, well, I haven't had any traps in this game yet. It's time. Let's show these guys what's going to happen in a good old-fashioned dungeon crawl. And I said, okay, well, who's got point? Everyone, without fail, points. Corbin. He's first. All right, so yeah, Corbin enters first, springs the trap, misses everything, failed his dice rolls, and big pile of rocks on the head. He dies. Well, he doesn't die. He gets down to 0 life. The cleric heals him back up. No big deal. So they continue on, and they find that this ruin is very simple. From what they can see, is a long hallway with a small door on one side and a set of double doors on the other. They deliberate for a short time to figure out what they want to do. And again, the mage just stopped talking. So someone asks, well, what do you think? And he says, I'm not even there. I probably should have decided to say, well, you need to tell me when you're not going to follow, when you're going to go somewhere, if you're going to try to wander off, I'd like to know about it. I should have gone farther with it. I didn't do that. So, at that point, the cardinal has disappeared again. And they decide to go in through the smaller door on the left. And in there I had planned there to be an ancient armory, and one of the great defenders that had locked them in there was this armor-clad, now zombie, ancient defender of the land. And with him he had his famous sword that he had used. And I was real vague, and so I didn't have a great story written as I think I even called him Captain What's-His-Name from the Battle of blah blah blah. And so again, the cleric tries to cast Turn Undead, succeeds, and I guess I could have given the guy some plot armor, but he's affected, but there's nowhere to run, so he pretty much is startled. And Thraben our fighter decides it's time to take advantage of the situation, makes a dexterity attempt, and snatches the sword away. So now we've got an armor-clad zombie, which they dispatched, and it was no problem. And just at this point, the mage slides me a note and says, okay, well, I've played via note before, that's fine. I've actually played with in games where I've had characters that were too unintelligent to speak, or had their tongue removed in a lost battle or something. They were incapable of speech, so they communicated everything to me and to the other party members via notepad. So I'm okay with this. He passes me a note. He wants to cast ventriloquism on the zombie as it's dying to try to spook out Thraben. Again, the Cardinal, I'm sorry. I'm probably giving away way too much here, but we can stop metagaming, at a certain point. And so the zombie locks eyes with Thraben and says, you're doomed. Your time is short. Things are going poorly. You know what you've done. And so the zombie goes down. They search the room. They search the body. All they come across is that this is the great sword that Thraben had so heroically stolen away. I think it might have been his only successful roll for the night. And so he's got this sword, and he asks, well, what is it? I said, it's an old tarnished sword. You can't really tell at this point. It looks like it might have at one time been a very nice weapon, but you're going to have to get it appraised or cleaned or repaired. So it's fine, so he stows it away. And he ends up taking the zombie's plate mail because the poor guy had such lousy armor. the bad rolls started early and continued on. So then they decide it's time to go enter into this main room with the double doors. And as they enter, they notice right away there's a group of 4 skeletons, 2 goblins, and a hobgoblin sitting on a throne, holding an axe in one hand and this mysterious blue orb in his other hand. Now, if they had investigated further down the corridor that this was on, they would have found the pedestal that had housed this orb. And, or maybe they did. Forgive me, guys, it has been a couple of days. I'm still a little behind. I have lost a little bit. I think they may have actually discovered the pedestal, and that it had been disturbed and something was missing from it.